What is up, boxing fans? Today is Tuesday, and you know what that means. A new chapter of Hajime no Ippo is out. I had a real good time reviewing the last chapter, and it got more views than I thought. So I figure I'm just going to keep doing this. I read every chapter anyway, and I'm always on the computer, so let's dive into 1476. I'm going to keep up with the live reviews on these. I am working on some scripted content on the series as a whole that might come out down the line, but for now, let's just take a look at this. So I've read this chapter about 3 times already. It's phenomenal. We are continuing Morikawa's streak of just absolutely excellent writing. He's hit a new peak, I think, or at least he's matched the peak of earlier in the series, and this is just a beautiful fight. So let's take a look at it. As of last round, or last chapter, Mashiba hit Rosario with a pretty brutal chopping right. But he managed to get up, and so the crowd starts, screaming, they're going to continue. Can't he just stay down? The belt's right there. Finish him off. But, like it says here in the title page, Mashiba downs Rosario with a full body chopping right, but the champion's indomitable fighting spirit gets him back on his feet. So we look at it, right, and I love his art lately. Like, the brutality of these fights is really showing. So we've got Mashiba and Rosario both looking worse for wear. While Mashiba is probably up right now, he's taken some pretty big hits. So let's continue. Mashiba, of course, is not the type to stand back and wait for Rosario to come in if he can help it. And so he goes right on the attack. The challenger is on the attack. The champion is unsteady on his feet. Will this decide it? And you see he's throwing his lefts against the tight guard that Rosario's put up. Mashiba lands a left, it's not even really a hook or a jab. I don't even know what it is. I think he's just kind of throwing his fist at this point, though maybe he's leaning back and it is a hook, and I'm just not looking at it right. Rosario takes this and instinctively covers his head. He can't keep taking hits on the head at this point, and he starts to fall over almost, right? Wobble, wobble. As Mashiba pulls his fist back, he's looking like a fucking demon here, man. He's about to go down. The crowd is going wild, right? Go for it. Go, 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 go. Just one more punch will do it. And we see the big right coming, right? And he trips. Mashiba throws the right, but because of Rosario's southpaw leg placement, his leg is right here, and he goes entirely off balance. Now, let's pause here for a moment. It's about to come up in a second, but there are two fights that should come to mind when you see this string of panels. The first and most obvious one, which the story is itself going to acknowledge, is the Mashiba versus Miyata fight from, 1,300 chapters ago or whatever. Their very first fight. This happened. Mashiba tripped Miyata, and it was part of what helped Mashiba to win. Now, that was intentional. As we move on here, actually, let's come back to that. This wasn't intentional. We'll come back to the Ippo parallel in just a moment, but let's move on one panel here, because this is probably the most important panel in the entire chapter. Mashiba trips, and he's so exhausted he falls on top of himself, essentially. And that's not a good direction for your neck to be in. And then right down here, this is giving me so much anxiety right now. This panel right here, throb, but it's these white cracks that are really stressing me out. I don't know if he is like fractured a vertebrae or something not good happened here. And we don't really get much more on it in the rest of the chapter, so it's gonna be something that comes up soon, I think. The crowd yells, right? Their legs got tangled up. It was a slip, not a down. Was it on purpose? Ippo goes on to say it wasn't on purpose. They're both just that unsteady. Again, they're towards the halfway point of this fight, but they're both running on empty. Sawamura says that was his big chance, and then says to Miyata, didn't you lose thanks to something like that too? Losing the win like this feels like karma, and Miyata thinks to himself karma. Now we'll move on to the Sendo part in a second, which I love, but I like this little interaction here. Sawamura has consistently been positioned in this fight, in the commentary, as someone who doesn't quite get it. He doesn't quite get that Mashiba has moved beyond where he was when they last fought. Mashiba has grown up. It's been a while since that fight, even. So Miyata's thinking to himself, karma, and I think that's because he kind of recognizes this is not Mashiba from 7-8 years ago or whatever it was in the story. I think 7 or 8, one of those. He recognizes that Mashiba is a different person at this point, a true boxer, as Ippo or Rosario might put it. So he doesn't really think karma makes sense here. It's just something that happened. It's not like it was back then. And Sendo agrees. Sendo gets up and says what we all want to say. Fuck that noise. Mashiba, fucking finish this already. He's saying what the audience is thinking. We've hit all the emotional crescendos. We've hit the big points. Mashiba has faced his demons. He has remembered all of the lessons from the prior fights. And yet, he hasn't finished it yet. So he gets back up. The match resumes. They both go in. Mashiba scores a left. Rosario is looking like he's been through hell. He scores the direct left. Rosario falls back. He stumbles, but he's held up by the ropes. It looks like it's the end, and Mashiba is a second away from winning. Can Mashiba finish it here? Everyone wants this. But then the ref comes in. At the worst possible time, maybe one more punch he needed at that moment. But the ref stops them. There's the gong. Round 6 is over. So we go back to the crowd. God, he was so close. Next round for sure. Who's in worse shape? It's got to be Rosario. No, I think it's Mashiba. They're both hurt. Remember going into this fight that one of Mashiba's plans was to drag it out to the second half? This is actually, that was the first half. It's a 12-round fight. So first half is over. Next round, round 7, will be the first round of the second half. I also think it's going to be the last round of the fight, kind of matching up with what they thought before the fight. So the crowd asks what's going to happen in round 7. And here we just get some, I'll use this word again. We just get beautiful writing. And I'm going to take a moment and explain why it's beautiful when we get there. But Rosario's coach, he yells for him to come back, and he sees he's just completely like out of gas, right? He's this beaten up. No way we can revive him in just a minute. What is this man when he's thinking about Mashiba? And that's the last we get of Rosario this chapter. As we go over, this is great. So the corner is yelling, ice, wait, water, either, whatever. He's that messed up. And Mashiba's coach is yelling at him, don't try to talk. You're doing great out there. Don't bother talking. Just take deep breaths. We're so close. It's right there. And Mashiba's, he's got 1 HP left. And I love this. I love this writing. I love this character development. I love this character arc. Everything about this is just, Morikawa spent hundreds of thousands of chapters just slowly building these characters into where they stand now. And the world stage feels like a culmination of all of that. This feels like everything. And Mashiba thinks to himself, just let me talk. The only reason I'm doing so well is because of you. And then in classic Morikawa fashion, right? The next panel is him looking like a moron. Slow deep breaths, inhale, exhale, right? He's a little silly, but Mashiba is directly acknowledging everyone that has gotten him to this moment, to this late hour. And he starts to say it again. He wants to say thank you. And I teared up looking at this, right? I teared up looking at this panel. Look at those. We've never seen eyes like that on Mashiba. It's like a big thing that happens in shonen manga, because it's a little bit kind of baked into Japanese culture, is that at the end of these long character arcs, for a good ending for a character, they become somewhat enlightened, right? They start to see the world in a holistic sense, and they become the best versions of themselves. And that's what we're seeing Mashiba undergo in this brutal fight. I'm always one word short, huh? That small tinge of tragedy there, that small sadness that he can't quite say it yet. But we all know what he needs to do to be able to say it, right? Seconds out. Oh, I forgot, we got a little more Rosario. This is actually a good line too. Rosario says to his coach, I definitely need to come to Japan again. What a great little character arc. Rosario comes into this fight as just a really bog standard villain, right? In his opening chapter, he has a gun. He gets arrested. He's like a monster. But through fighting a true boxer like Mashiba, he starts to, again, appreciate the sport. And I said this last week, but this is meant to be a parallel to Mashiba's development against Ippo. It's kind of showing how far Mashiba has come, that he is now like Ippo to other people. And Rosario has gone full circle as well, or done 180, whatever you want to call it. He's gone from disrespecting boxing to not even saying he needs to win anymore. He wants to come back to Japan to fight Mashiba again because of what he's given him through this fight. And then we get our cut here to Mashiba, and the world's spinning around him. I can't quite tell. I should have looked this up before I did the live review. This is not Mashiba's coach, I'm pretty sure. This is the probation officer, whose name is escaping me at the moment, that we learned about earlier that died of cancer. That's who Mashiba's thinking of here. And he thinks to himself earlier, why didn't I say it? And his coach tells him to focus. And he says to him a line almost as good as when Takamura said, "I'll come back as the king." To make up for it, to make up for not being able to say thank you, I'll give you the belt. Round 7. Hold on one sec, the way that I am... Okay, you can't see the full thing, but round 7. So round 7 comes, and I think we're in for the last chapter, next chapter. The other parallel I want to talk about really quickly that I mentioned earlier, back when we were saying we should think of 2 fights. Where was it? Here. So right around this part. The first one's obviously the Miyata fight, but the other fight you should be thinking of when reading these panels is Ippo versus Guevara. Why is that? Well, one, it's a pretty clear callback, I would say, to that fight. The fact that Mashiba tripped over Rosario's southpaw lead foot, same way Ippo tripped over Guevara's southpaw lead foot. So already a little bit of a comparison there, but here we see that Mashiba is fixated on something that isn't quite the fight, right? He's kind of like Ippo was with showing the Dempsey. The thing is, how do I want to put this? Morikawa has responded to that. Morikawa has responded to that idea of being fixated on something else twice. This will be the second time. The first time was during Sendo versus Alf, right? In Sendo versus Alf, he showed that one way to sort of break that barrier that Ippo fell to when he fought Alf was to be so single-mindedly focused and just like kind of blitz through whatever might stop you, be it a full-bodied counter or what have you. Mashiba, who might be crippled at this point, he might have I think he might have broken a vertebrae or something in that fall earlier. He's got a reason that goes beyond showing the Dempsey works. He's got a reason to keep fighting here. He will not lose this fight. I will pay $10 to anyone that comments on this video that thinks that he will lose this fight. He will not. I am so certain of that. So, all in all, 1476, really just another beautiful chapter. A really good job from Morikawa. I think he finishes this arc in the next 1 or 2 chapters at the most. And it goes down as one of the best arcs of this entire series of Hajime no Ippo. Hope you guys like this. If you have any comments or suggestions on how I could change these, this is kind of new content for me, so let me know. Otherwise, peace out. See you next time.